morning, everybody. How are you? I hope that this broadcast finds you very well indeed. My name is Ali Board. I am broadcasting live this morning from my studio down here on the south coast at Down End Farm Studio. And today I am bringing you Technique Tuesday. I bring you Technique Tuesday every single week. It's been going on for over a year now. And at the start it was always pre-recorded, but for the most part now I do it live because for no other reason it is really lovely to chat to you all. Now if you are watching this live and you're not watching it via YouTube or my blog, please do take part. Don't be shy, don't sit in the background. Give us a verbal wave. You can pop it into the comments. Let me know that you're there. Say hello. Tell me what you're up to. Tell me what you're experimenting with. I love to hear from you. So I'm just going to have a quick look and see who is in the room. Let's give some people a shout out. Ali D, good morning. Ali WT, good morning. Lots of Ali's in the room this morning. Anne, Sally, Gloria, Steph, Jane, and Margaret, Vera, good morning Vera, Lou, Hilary, Jill, Rosie. Lots of love to you all. It's very lovely to have you here. So what am I doing today? Today I am carrying on with Inktober. If you're not quite sure what Inktober is, you can pop over to inktober.com and read more about it. But basically, it's a way of kick-starting your creativity. And the idea is that there's a prompt every single day and you can use that. It's usually a single word. You can use that to interpret however you wish. The idea is that you do it in ink, but you didn't hear it from me. You can do whatever you like with it. Don't listen to the art police. There's been a lot of art police out there this week saying that it should be done like this and it should be done like that. You can do it however you like, because if you're creating something and you're putting pen or brush or whatever it is to paper, you can do whatever you like. And it's been really interesting to see how people interpret it. You may or may not know that I was a curator of the Artist Demo Days Facebook page last week, and I did a broadcast to do with Inktober every single day. And my All Aboard Artists group, my little membership group that's gone international now, have been interpreting it too, and they've been putting up some really interesting things. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing, just make the creation. It doesn't matter where you start, and it certainly doesn't matter where you end up. Who else is in the room? Who have I not said good morning to this morning? Trisha, good morning. Jean says that she's going to play about with some of the printmaking techniques that I showed on the Artist Demo Days page next week. So is Sally. Jill is doing a remake of the workshop that we did on Saturday, the Semi-Abstract Venice Saturday that I did in person. Who knew that was a thing? Standing in a room with people, teaching them. Pauline, good morning. Jane, who else we got? Christine, Sharon, good morning, my lovely, and Steph. You're all terribly welcome. Shall I take you to the overhead cam and I will fill you in on a few things that I have been playing with? Let's take you to that overhead cam. So here we have a whole selection of things. Now this was a demonstration that you can see if you go back to the Artist Demo Days page. I think it was Thursday, where I experimented with black Brusho and some dandelion leaves. Why did I do dandelion leaves? Because the Inktober prompt of the day was teeth. And for those of you that know your French, dandelion is the French for lion's tooth. So that's why I did it. And I did it by flooding my piece of paper in black Brusho and then coating my dandelion leaves, which I'd put in a flower press, with some Milton, with some sterilising fluid, similar to bleach, and then pressing them back into the surface. So that was my starting point. And I wanted to explore that a little bit further. So let's put that to one side and show you this beautiful thing. Not that the inside is terribly beautiful, but the outside is stunning. Now this is a sketchbook that I had made for me. Isn't it a thing of joy? And the very, very clever textile artist that created it for me took one of my paintings and had it digitally printed onto fabric. So this is fabric. Look, it's got a lovely fabric cover. And then even more cleverly transferred my logo, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and then stitched it on. Isn't that awesome? And the very clever person who made this was my mum. Of course it was my mum, because she's stunningly clever. And then my dad, because of course I am a stationer's daughter, created this pad for me. So this is Saunders Waterford watercolour paper, and he has a rather lovely spiral binding machine, and you can see that I've been doing a few sketches on location in this. But today, this brings me on to this one. Let's fold this over so you can see it a bit better in the camera. There we go, that's better. And today's prompt is Dune, D-U-N-E. Now, I have been trying to think a bit laterally with some of the subjects that I've been using in Inktober, but today I thought actually sometimes it's quite nice to just do the thing that it says. So I found this rather lovely photograph of a sand dune on a beach with a beautiful headland. I'm not entirely sure where this is, it has to be said, but it's got this sort of beautiful sand dune in the background, lovely light in the sky, and those grasses that sort of poke up out of the sand. So I thought I would use this as my starting point this morning. Now, I haven't printed it out in colour. Why have I not printed it out in colour? I've printed it out in black and white because I am going to be doing this whole painting in black and white, and for that I'm going to be using black Brusho. So just in case you've been hiding under the sofa and you're not entirely sure what black Brusho is, here's a very large pot of black Brusho. This, the way I would describe this is as a powdered ink. You'll see when I take the lid off, it has sort of little pigment particles in it. You can make it up into an ink. You can use it in its powder form, all sorts of things. Now, most of the time you will see that I use it in its powder form. A lot of you will know that I love to use it for texture and sprinkling onto a surface and doing all sorts of wacky things with it. But you know what? Today I'm going to use it in the way that it was designed to be used, as an ink, using it in various different strengths and popping a little bit of that Milton in for good measure too. Have I already prepped this? Have I tried this out lots of times so that it goes swimmingly for a live broadcast? No, of course I haven't. Why would I do that? It's much more fun if you see me experiment and make mistakes as we go along. So I don't really know what's going to happen. I've got a good idea of what's going to go down with this, but I haven't absolutely got the definitive version of it. Let's just see what people are saying. Lots of people, oh, Anne just said, good morning. Good morning, Anne. Inktober is certainly about the journey and not the destination. Couldn't have put it better myself, Anne. What a fabulous way of saying that. Lots of people commenting because they know I have a Zoom tutorial this evening where we were doing pumpkins. I think a lot of people are getting ready for that. Lots of people saying, Gloria saying, your mum is amazing. Can I borrow her? No, she's mine, all mine. She is amazing, isn't she? It's a lot to live up to. So let's get cracking, shall we? Let's swap these places out. So I'm going to bring my sketch pad down a little bit. I'm going to put my palette at the top. Actually, I can bring that a little bit further into shot so that you can see both things. Just got to check something. Right, there's my pot of black Brusho. And one of the marvellous things about the black Brusho is that it isn't just black. You'll get turquoises and oranges and all sorts of things out of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is very carefully take the lid off. Very carefully take the lid off. And I'm going to give it a bit of a stir with my coffee stirrer. Why am I doing that? Because in here you've got all sorts of assorted pigment particles. And what happens is that the heavier ones fall to the bottom and the lighter ones fall to the top. So if you just scoop it out of the pot straight away, what you tend to get is a sort of a slightly duller version. I like to give it a good stir first, and then you get a richer version of it. And this coffee stirrer also comes in handy because I can use it like a little scoop to deposit some into my palette. Now, if you've not used Brusho before, I am here to tell you that that is plenty. Doesn't look like a lot, but I promise you that is more than enough for what I need today. Let's shift my chair ever so slightly. What else have I got going on? I've got a pot of water here. I've got my SAA imitation sable brushes. I've got a number 8 and a number 4. These are both round, my favourite brushes in the whole world. I've got a bit of kitchen roll to one side, and I'm going to squeeze out a little, there it is, a little bit of the Milton sterilising fluid. Now you can use bleach. I don't particularly like using bleach because I think it's a bit harsh, and some of those really thick bleaches do tend to yellow a little bit. So Milton is my sterilising fluid of choice. I'm sure there are other brands out there. And I also know that it doesn't necessarily have to be the liquid. You can make up the tablets into a liquid and use those, and that works too. Don't forget that if you are watching this live and you are commenting as we go, and you may have had a go at this, you may have had a chance to experiment with this yourself, then let us know in the comments. It would be nice to hear from you, to gain from your experience too. So I'm hoping that you can see everything in shot, plus my glasses, because otherwise I can't see anything, and then we are in trouble. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make up some solutions of Brusho with a little bit of water. Oh, and apparently a bit of dog hair as well. Typical, had to make an appearance, didn't it? So a little bit of water in there, and then I'm going to touch my brush very lightly into the Brusho and make up some colour. So you can see when I make it up, it's got a kind of warmth to it, the black. It's like a pinky grey. It's very delicious. So I've got a nice thin version of it, which I'm going to add a bit more water to. And then I'm going to make up a second version of it over here that's a little bit thicker. So a bit of water going in there, again tapped into the Brusho and into there. I think I'll do another bit of that. Ooh, I put a bit of water into my powder, never mind. Never mind. And I'm going to make that up too. So not so much. So you can see already that this one's a bit thinner. This one's a little bit more intense. Now, one of the interesting things about making up Brusho is that you can choose how much you mix it together. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you stir it round and round and round and round and round, you'll dissolve all the particles and you'll get that lovely kind of pinky, lilac-y black going on. If you decide to, let's pop a little bit of water in there, pop some water in, pick up the particles, and then you don't over mix them, next time your brush goes into that, it will have some of the particles attached to the bristles, and then you'll get a variety of colours. Look at that, I'm such a messy article, aren't I? I've splattered it everywhere already. Now, the difference between painting with Brusho and painting with watercolour, even if you are using top grade watercolour paper like I am, is that it stains far faster. So if you want to do that kind of soft, blended out kind of look, you've either got to work stupendously quickly or you need to put a good amount of water down first. So I'm going to pop some water down for my sky, and then I'm going to go into my kind of light version of it and get some vague looking clouds in. And you can see there I do have to work quickly, otherwise it stains super fast. But all I'm after for the time being is just a light wash in the background. I can use a little bit of kitchen roll to manage the moisture content, but I can't lift it out. I can't rag roll like I would do with a watercolour because the Brusho has hit the paper and that is staying there. Now I'm going to use a bit of kitchen roll just along my horizon line because I want to go in with my size 4 brush and, should we go for it? Should we go for this slightly stronger version? And we'll get this headland in. So I'm going to do, apparently I've got trees growing out of it as well. Oh dear. I'm going to work quite quickly. I'm going to use a little bit of water to do some blending out, but you'll see that I don't get an awful lot of movement on it. I probably should have dried this first, but never mind. Such is the nature of live broadcasting and experimenting. So let's get that horizon in. Oh, I know, I can show you something with those little creepy bits in a moment. So I've got my headland in. I want to add a bit of water into here for whatever this is, body of water. It must be sea because of the sand dunes, mustn't it? Can you get sand dunes anywhere else? Somebody tell me. Somebody's a better authority. Yes, Ali D, I am using a size 4 brush. Who knew that that was a thing? Gwen, good morning from Shrewsbury. Let's sweep a little bit of that black Brusho in for our body of water, whatever that may be. And let's also use a slightly stronger version of that for our kind of beach type area. Let's get that in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint negatively up to my sand dune so that when I come to paint the detail in just a second, the sand dune should stand out. So let's get that in. But it's all very loose, very experimental, not worrying about the final thing, none of that kind of stuff whatsoever. So we've got some base colours. Oh, Liz is saying the Sahara, no sea. Very true, very true. Still get sand dunes in the desert, don't you? I hadn't thought of that. Very good point. Well presented, Liz. So I'm going to give this a quick dry. Just a really quick one so that I can be painting the dune. Got the good old trusty heat gun here to give it a quick blast. All over. There we go. So that's just drying it off quite nicely. Let's give it a test. Okay, yeah, it'll do. It'll do. Now, if you make a bit of a boo-boo with the Brusho, as I have done here, here's where my Milton comes in. Now, if you want my recommendation, I would say to use different brushes for the Milton. But you don't have to. I think Milton is not coarse enough to affect your brushes, and I'm going to wash them out really quickly too. Now I'm moving my pad up because what I want to do is to zoom in. Let me use my other hand so that I'm not crossing over it. Let's just zoom in so that when I use the Milton, you will be able to see what it does. So I've got my size 4 brush and I'm going into my Milton and I'm going to swipe just a little bit over the top of any areas that I don't like the look of, and you will see very quickly how it starts to pull some of that colour off the paper. It bleaches it out, does exactly what it's supposed to do. And so what you get then is some interesting values. Now, if you wanted to soften those, you can put some water down first and then add the Milton over the top. And you can kind of pull and push the colour around. Now, the disadvantage of this is that you then can't paint Brusho back over the top of it, because whatever you paint Brusho-wise over the top, it will continue to bleach. However, those of you who like to combine watercolour and Brusho, Milton does not in any way affect watercolour. So if I was layering it up, or if I was using Brusho on top of watercolour and I used a bit of Milton, it wouldn't be pulling out the watercolour at all. It would only affect the Brusho. So coming over here to the water line, I'm going to go back in with a little bit of darker colour along here to kind of backdrop the dune. And I'm going to use some water to blend that out. And I'm also going to use a little bit of Milton in there too, to start playing around with some of the textures on that foreshore. And then it becomes rather interesting, doesn't it? I'm getting variations in my Brusho. I'm getting darks, and I'm getting, you can probably see a few oranges and things going on in there too. So a little bit of water to do some blending out. I'm going to flood that a little bit more with water. and the tiniest bit of Milton. You see how quickly it lifts out. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I'm going to also put a little bit of that dark in along the shoreline. Let it run into the Milton and the water, if you like. But I'm kind of playing, experimenting, doing all kinds with getting that interesting water's edge going on. And you can very successfully start to add other things. I've put my brush into the very thick version that I've done. I'm going to see what happens when I drop that back in, where I hadn't mixed the particles properly. Ooh, that's interesting, isn't it? Not only have I got slightly different colours coming forwards, but it's sort of leaching into the Milton and creating a rather delicious effect that I didn't anticipate. What's not to like about that? So let's get this in. We'll do a little bit more on this foreshore, and then we will get to the dunes themselves. Otherwise, I'm going to be in danger of not actually attacking the subject matter that we're all here for. A bit of darker stuff. Let's backfill some of this shape. So you can see it's very sketchy. It's not neat and tidy at all. Why would you want to paint neatly and tidily when you can be playing? Let's pop some of that in, and we'll fade it off to one end. Now, that does definitely need to have a dry before I do anything else to it. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Let's come out a little bit so that you can see more of it when I get to the sand dune part of it. Right, let's give it a blast. There you go, that'll do. That will do. Yeah, that's all right. And then we're going to work on the sand dune itself. So, too many things in front of me. So one of the things I want to do first is to go in with a really weak solution of colour. So I've only got a few granules of Brusho here and lots of water to create a very soft colour. Because all I want to do to start with is to put some shadows in on my sand dune. To go along here, a little bit of water. We want the actual sand itself to be quite pale. We only want it to have the kind of essence of shadow. Looks a little bit like snow, it has to be said. I've done this in the past where I've painted it and it looks like grass emerging from snow. But hopefully, because I've put sea in the background, it will look like a sand dune. But do you know what? If somebody says to me, what a beautiful painting of snow, then you know what you do, don't you? You say thanks. And then you work on your sand dune painting techniques. Look at that, blob to the water everywhere. So I've got I think I probably need a few more shadows. Liz is saying, what paper are you using? I am using Saunders Waterford £140 rough in traditional white this morning. Gloria is saying, can't believe all those shades and colours just from black. I know, such is the deliciousness of Brusho. Because why would you not like it? And the thing I love about Brusho is actually, apart from the fact it's so versatile, apart from the fact that it's so easily available, is actually quite how economical it is. It's not an expensive art material. Sometimes I do have it levelled at me that I only use expensive materials, but Brusho in the UK, I think, is something like £175, £185 a pot. This is a big pot, I grant you, but honestly, it'll last you ages and ages and ages. So I've got a bit of shadow, and what I need to do now are some grasses coming from that. And I'm going to do grasses in the way that I usually like to do grasses, which is using the handle of my brush. How do I do that? I pick up some of that Brusho that I haven't over mixed particularly, and I dot some of the colour in. I turn my brush handle up the other way, and then I draw back into that blob with the handle of my brush. So let's do that again. Bit of a blob and grasses coming out. Now, the brilliant thing about doing sand dunes, of course, is that you can't actually do too many grasses. And the wetter you make the blob, the more grasses you're going to get out of it, or the further that they're going to go. Now, the thing about using the Brusho is that, of course, you can vary the depth of those grasses because of the variation that you're getting in the colour. So let's add a bit more. Let's get going. So you can see I'm really kind of scrubbing it. Now, if you wanted to do some grasses with your brush, of course you could do that too. You could add to those values. And this is LED why I have a size 4 in my hand today, because I want some nice fine lines and I want them all criss-cross. That's the technical word for them, obviously. So we'll get that in. Anne is saying outer Hebridean beaches are white sand anyway. Just say it's on the Hebrides. I didn't think of that. Yes, in actual fact, on the west coast of Scotland is a beautiful beach called Silver Sands that I have visited many a time in the past. And I'd forgotten that. So yes, it's outer Hebrides. There it is now anyway. And then let's put a little bit of extra in there, a few dots. Now, of course, the danger with this is that you overdo it. And we all know how easy it is to overdo, don't we? So all I'm going to actually do is add a few more. Oh, those are very upright, aren't they? Not so sure about those. I'm going to add a few more. Let's do some with the handle of my brush down here. That's better. And then I think we'll probably call it a day, because I didn't want to take too long. The whole point of Inktober is that you don't have to spend excessive amounts of time. I mean, I think it needs a spatter, don't you? Because why wouldn't you? Let's get a bit of spatter in there for good measure, just to add to the texture. And then I think the other thing I will do as well is I will pick up some Milton and I will add a bit of Milton spatter in there too, because then hopefully what will happen is that it will start to bleach some of the colour out, or it will mix together and we'll get an interesting texture. And you know what? I am going to leave that there. Let's zoom out so you get the whole thing. A very quick experiment, not only in how to use Brusho, but how to use Milton along with it. A bit of a sand dune effect. I am not going to paint a seagull in. Most of you know my hatred of seagulls in paintings. Controversial, I know. But we have looked at tonal values. We have looked at how you can use the bleach to your advantage. And we've done a relatively speedy little sketch, so that you're not having to spend ages on your painting. You're just enjoying that bit of process, that bit of an experiment, and taking part in Inktober even as we go. I need coffee in my life. So I hope you enjoyed that. This is the time where if you have any questions, pop them into the comments. Don't forget, this gets archived over on my blog. Where do you find my blog? You find it on my website, alisonseaboard-fineart.co.uk. All sorts of other things over on my website too, including some resources which I am working on. I know I haven't updated them recently. I've been a tiny bit busy, but I promise that I will do that soon. If there's anything you would like to see included on my website, then please do that. I've started archiving some of my artist demo days demonstrations over there too. Let me just have a quick look, see if there's any questions that I can answer. Lots of people being very lovely. Thank you very much. Lots of people saying that they will see me tonight. Tonight we are doing squashes and pumpkins using oil pastel as a resist for watercolour. So if you are attending that workshop tonight, I will look forward to seeing you in a Zoom room very soon. Next week, Technique Tuesday, there is a chance that unfortunately I can't be in the studio at 10 o'clock next Tuesday. So there is a chance that I will pre-record next week's Technique Tuesday. Sorry about that. Just sometimes I have to be in 2 places at once, but I promise you that there will be another Inktober going up next Tuesday. In the meantime, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're continuing to be inspired by it. Don't forget, if you've got any questions at all, then email me downendfarmstudio@gmail.com. But in the meantime, take care everybody, and I will either see you via social media or in a Zoom room very soon. Bye bye.